Hey guys, I'm Hannah Cox with BASEDPolitics. Welcome back to my show Histrionics, where every week I'm giving you a sane, middle-of-the-road take on women's issues. If you like this video, make sure to share it around, leave me a like and a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This week, we have to talk about a subject that's not really politically related, but it does keep me up at night, and I want to put it on your radar. I have always had a little bit of anxiety about getting married, but one of the things that makes me the most tepid about it is a statistic that shows women are far more likely to be abandoned by their husbands when they get a terminal diagnosis. They started studying this a while back, actually, but it's a statistic that I think flies shockingly under the radar. Women are actually 6 times more likely to end up separated or divorced if they are diagnosed with cancer or multiple sclerosis than if their male partners were facing the same illnesses. Now, one study showed the divorce or separation rate among cancer patients was about 11.6%, which was similar to the general populations. But they found the rate jumped to 20.8% when the woman was sick versus 2.9% when the man was ill. I'm going to lose my mind over this. They went on to note that female gender was the strongest predictor of separation or divorce in each of the patient groups they studied. The reason men leave a sick spouse can be partially explained by their inability to rapidly adjust to becoming a caregiver and to look after the home and family. The study also found links between age and length of marriage and the likelihood of divorce or separation. They said longer marriages were more likely to remain stable, but the older the woman, the more likely the partnership would end. I am not okay with this information. And just to be clear, this isn't like a little dinky study here or there. This was actually studied by the National Institutes of Health, which screw those guys, I know. But point being, they have actually looked at this across the country and it holds true. And to be honest, the reasons that they give for why men tend to leave their wives more often when they are diagnosed with cancer versus the other way around don't make me feel any better. They're like, oh, well, the man's not used to taking care of anybody. The wife always takes care of him, you see? She is on her deathbed. I mean, divorce or separation seems traumatizing enough, but I cannot fathom being told that you might die, facing a terminal illness that might kill you, and having your husband bounce. That is seriously sick.
I can't stop thinking about how the divorce rate for men leaving their sick wives is so high that the nurses are taught to warn women patients when they get diagnosed with a serious illness. That's because those men didn't marry a partner, but a housekeeper, a childbearer, a nanny. A sick woman can't do those jobs anymore, so the men just leave. They actually feel entitled to this. I've heard men married 20 to 30 years tell their wives, I didn't sign up for this. People have no idea how common this is, especially with cancer patients. They thought I had ALS. This is his dating profile I found. I'm fighting for my life and he's out getting laid.
And I just want to point out how unusual this is as well, because in normal circumstances, men are very unlikely to actually go file the papers for divorce. In fact, only about 29 to 30% of husbands file for divorce in normal circumstances. And I do want to be clear here because this is a statistic the red pill community loves to toss around. They're like, 80% of women file for divorces. If you get married, you're just going to take all your money and run. They never do anything wrong, and then their woman just ups and leaves them and files for divorce. No, that's not what's happening. I am 100% sure that's not what's happening. I do think women are more likely to file for divorce because women are more likely to handle the paperwork, period. And they are more likely to take action when they're unhappy and work to fix their own lives. Just because the woman goes and files doesn't mean she's the one that ruined the marriage or created the disfavorable circumstances. And it also doesn't mean that she hasn't done significant work to try to fix the scenario first. My main point bringing this up, though, is that throughout the courses of their marriage, men will cheat on their wives. They will flirt with other women. They will be absolutely miserable. They will complain about their wives to anybody who will listen, but they will not go file for divorce. They are far more likely to stay in unhappy marriages until the woman becomes terminally ill. I just can't wrap my mind around this. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, Hannah, you seem to be in good health and also you're not married. So what brought this up for you? And I'm so glad you asked because there was actually a story that first put this on my radar a few years ago. Prepare yourselves. The story I have to tell you about is of B. Smith, who was a beloved entrepreneur and model, and who was unfortunately diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease about a decade ago. And for some reason, after her diagnosis and eventual decline, her husband, who she had been married to for nearly 30 years, decided it was appropriate to move on and announce his new girlfriend to the public. And not only that, but he also announced that his new girlfriend was staying in the home with him and B. Smith. Like they were all hanging out, and B. Smith was just over there with Alzheimer's, had no clue what was going on. Can you imagine? I don't know what I have to put in my will to ensure this doesn't happen to me, but I was horrified by this story. I'm still horrified by it. This was covered at the time by Essence magazine, and during the interview, Gaspy, her husband, explained that he had zero guilt for sharing his new relationship with Alex Lerner, who had a room in the couple's house. If this is us and Modern Family came together, it would be us, Gaspy told the Post. Gaspy told the reporter that he's told his wife he has a girlfriend, but isn't sure that it has registered.
You know, I've been married for 26 years. I've been with B 27 and a half years. Alex and I are now going on a year and a half being together. I believe in the sanctity of marriage, but I don't believe death do you part means that because you made a commitment, if the person is not there, that you should sit there and watch your life shrivel up. And that's why I am where I am today, taking care of B and having someone else in my life.
According to B. Smith's fans, she by no means would have been okay with this. In fact, she seems to have been pretty territorial and jealous during her cognitive lifespan. One fan noted B. Smith wouldn't be okay with it. He detailed it in their book that she slapped him in the middle of their restaurant because he flirted with a customer in front of her face when he thought she didn't remember. I think it's perfectly valid in a healthy relationship to discuss what you might do if the other person were to pass. Some people feel very strongly about wanting their partner to be able to move on and still be happy and not be alone after their death, and others very much do not want that person to move on without them. But I don't think it should be an argument whether or not it's ethical to do that while your partner is still alive. Till death do us part does not mean that you can bring a third person into the marriage without consent and still be keeping your vows. And honestly, while this is pure opinion, a big part of me wonders if men tend to do this because they never plan to be the spouse that ends up alone. And that's because men are still much more likely to die before women. That's just my hypothesis, of course, but if you look at the data around what men do after their partner dies, if they stick around for that, I think it backs up my instincts. Men are far more likely to remarry within a 2-year time span after a partner dies. By 25 months after the spouse's death, 61% of men and only 19% of women were either remarried or involved in a new romance. Women expressed far more negative feelings about forming new romantic relationships.
Men's wives die, they always remarry. When women's husbands die, they never do.
Hi, my name is Kayla. I'm a funeral director on this page, and we often discuss things we don't learn in mortuary school, and my mortuary school gets. And she is spot on. I have led or been a part of at least a few hundred funerals at this point. And something I have always noticed when it's the death of an elderly person. If it's an elderly man who has just lost his wife, the woman who's taken care of him the past 40, 50, 60 plus years, you always see them at their funerals going, I don't know what I'm going to do, how am I going to live, how will I move on, who's going to take care of me? And fair, they have just lost their spouse. But then when an elderly man dies, and his wife starts commenting on their life together, she never once worries about how she's going to be taking care of herself. She's got the bank codes, the life insurance, and she knows where all the secret kids are. And she don't got to deal with none of that no more.
More than 60% of men remarry within 2 years of the death of their wife.
I know this is anecdotal, but my dad's a pastor, so I've always known a lot of old people. And I've seen this play out in the churches. Women, when their husband dies, are far more likely to stay single, and most of them are still very self-sufficient, very active, and very social. Men, on the other hand, are almost immediately remarried. Maybe that's because there's fewer men to remarry in this population because, again, men are more likely to die sooner. So as you age, women have much fewer options. But I think there's something more to it because if you talk to many of these people, they will tell you they have no desire to remarry.
Would you, if something happened to your husband, get remarried to another man? I have a wonderful husband. He is amazing. I am not bullshitting. I'm not kidding. I love him. He is my best friend. He treats me very well. He is wonderful. But if something happened to him, I would not get remarried to a man. Maybe to a woman. I don't know. I'm not gay, but I think I got lucky.
Most of them, if they had a happy, long marriage with a man, feel like they lucked out and would never risk it again. And those who had a less than stellar experience with their first husband are not eager to take another shot. So what are my conclusions from all this? 1, you need to be very, very careful who you marry. I don't know exactly how you vet a man to make sure he wouldn't leave you if you were terminally ill, but I'm trying to come up with some kind of litmus test and I'll keep you posted. Because there are far too many crappy men out there for my taste, given this statistic. But moreover, looking at the entire landscape and the picture this presents, I think what it says is that men are actually the ones who are far more afraid of being alone, especially as they age. They're far less self-sufficient than women and really dependent on a woman to take care of them in old age. That's probably why they go ahead and jump ship so quickly when somebody is diagnosed with a terminal illness, and it's certainly why they move on so quickly once a partner has died. The red pill community is constantly claiming that women hit the wall, and if women don't lower their standards and just settle, that they're going to end up alone with cats. And women are constantly telling them, we're not afraid of that. You are. And it's true. These men will literally up and go get hospice wives just so they aren't alone for a year or two after their first wife dies. I really think this is something men need to work with within themselves because it's not okay. If you make a vow to someone in sickness and in health and until death do us part, then you have to stick around to take care of them when they're sick. And what's absolutely crazy is if these statistics went into verse, there would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Can you imagine the histrionics if women just up in droves left men when they were diagnosed with terminal illnesses? Like, it seems most men can't really take care of themselves on a good day, much less when they're actually dying. Meanwhile, the majority of women go throughout their lives and their marriages and their motherhoods taking care of the entire family, waiting on everybody's sick bed, ensuring they're comfortable and every need is met. And then when they're the one that needs something, they get abandoned. It's just something to think about. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If you knew this data already, I'm very curious how open of a secret it is. Don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week. If you like this episode, you'll definitely like others in my series Histrionics here. And don't forget to check out my weekly show, the BASEDPolitics podcast, here.